Okay, this is going to be probably one of the not best videos I've ever done. The lighting is weird, the scenery is weird. I'm exhausted, I've barely slept. I don't want to just leave you hanging, so I am putting these chapters together, 6 and 7, in one video, and then I'm getting back to the hospice for my friend. So, I mean, at least I got here in time. But the reality is, I know it's just going to get harder as the week goes on. So I'm trying not to push anything else off because the reality is it could be any time now. And I want to be able to be there, but I also don't want you guys to not have any kind of guidance before the test on Monday. So without further ado, let's get to our chapters. So I'm getting to chapter 6. Here we go. We are going to cover cellular respiration followed by photosynthesis. It all goes together. So first, this is going to be about the cellular respiration. So how cells harvest chemical energy. Not really a whole lot to say on this one. It's just the intro slide. It's the basics, letting you know that oxygen is part of what makes everything happen. It's a reactant for the cellular respiration. Generates ATP. ATP is energy. Talking about brown fat, that's a short circuit in the cellular respiration that generates only heat, not energy. And brown fat is important for the heat production in small mammals, including humans. So, one, so cute. I love the babies. Can brown fat keep a newborn warm and help keep an adult thin? Well, that's part of what we're going to talk about, sort of. Here we go. Cellular respiration. We have aerobic harvesting of energy. We already know that life requires energy. Without energy, you cannot survive. Most of the time, the energy ultimately comes from the sun because it's just the way it works. Sun gives down the light, and then it all kind of bunches from there. So photosynthesis, which I think is interesting that chapter 6 is talking about it when photosynthesis is covered in chapter 7, but there you go. So in photosynthesis, some of the energy is going to be stored from the sunlight, goes to the chloroplast. The chloroplasts then swap it around, and they take the carbon dioxide, they water, mix it up, make glucose to feed themselves, and then let oxygen out. So we are very happy because we want that oxygen. In cellular respiration, it's pretty much the opposite. We take in sugar and oxygen, and then that gives us the energy, and we release carbon dioxide. So pretty much just trying to show you connection between photosynthesis and cellular respiration, which again, I really think they should have covered photosynthesis first, but you know, that's beside the point. Respiration, as it relates to breathing, and cellular respiration are not the same thing. When you're talking about breathing, you know, that's what we tend to think of with respiration. That's not what we're talking about for the cell respiration. Cellular respiration is the aerobic harvesting of energy from food molecules by cells. Now, the reason I said aerobic like that is because we are going to end up talking about aerobic respiration and anaerobic. So aerobic means it requires oxygen. Anaerobic, by putting that "and" before it, means without oxygen. Showing that your breathing respiration is connected to cellular respiration because you're having to take in the oxygen. So if you look at the little thing at the bottom down here, the formula, you will see we have glucose, which is a simple sugar. Glucose plus oxygen turns into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Cellular respiration is an exergonic process. So energy releasing, X, remember, is out. So energy releasing process. can produce up to 32 ATP molecules for each glucose molecule, and uses about 34% of the energy originally stored in glucose, with the rest of the energy lost as heat. And yeah, we're going to talk. I have stuff about this in a moment. Okay, equation. Again, we have glucose, which is C6H12O6. I would learn that one because you'll need that for the photosynthesis one. Plus oxygen will give us carbon dioxide, water, energy, and heat. Now notice we have numbers on some of these, and I tell you this just in case you end up having to write this for a test. So notice we have 1 glucose molecule, 6 oxygen, and then we have 6 carbon dioxide, 6 water, and then ATP and heat. Now, if you're trying to figure out if you have it all correct, I want to use the laser pointer. There we go. You will see right here, that means those are 6 oxygen. That's 2, but there's 6 of them, so 6 times 2 equals 12. So 12 plus 6 is 18, so you should have 18 oxygen for this to be right. So here we have 12, and then we have 18. So that works. You can also do the same thing. There's 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen. And so that would be 6 times 2 is 12 hydrogen. That's how you tell it's balanced. That will help you down the road for when you're doing the photosynthesis equation too. Okay, now your body requires continuous supply of energy. If you do not have energy coming in, everything starts to shut down. So cellular respiration provides energy for your body maintenance and voluntary activity. So it's not just what you're wanting to do, it's every aspect of keeping your body alive has to have a metabolism, because your cells are constantly needing to be fixed, replaced. I was going to say destroyed if they're faulty. There's a lot of stuff. Your body is constantly replacing things. And so you have to be taking the stuff in. This is just trying to show how much kcalories consumed per hour by exercise. And notice it says for someone who weighs 150 pounds. It's actually different depending on how much you weigh and all of that. That's how come if anyone's ever been like on a treadmill or an elliptical machine and it asks you all these questions, you have to punch it in there. It's because it's calculated that way. In Bio 124, we'll talk about it. So how do your cells extract energy from fuel molecules? Well, already talked about that, where it's going to do this nifty little chemistry thing. Basically, it's going to use the electron transport chain. This is kind of what we were looking at a moment ago. We've got our glucose, which will lose the hydrogen so that H12 gets moved out of the way. So that means it has been oxidized. Your O2 picks up the hydrogens that the other one dropped. So that means it is reduced. Yeah, I know it seems weird that if it loses hydrogen, it's oxidized, but if it gains it, it's reduced. That's just the wording. So if you remember, when the hydrogen atoms go bye-bye, that's considered oxidized. When it takes in those hydrogen atoms, then it is considered reduced. So it's a redox reaction. Stage 1, we have glycolysis. This is the beginning for the cellular respiration. It breaks down the glucose into the 2 molecules. Then we have stage 2, which is the pyruvate oxidation in the citric acid cycle. This is taking place inside the mitochondria. It's going to oxidize and then supply the 3rd stage with electrons. I am so sorry, I can't even speak today. It's been a long friggin' couple of days. So here we go. Stage 1, we have glycolysis, which then brings us to stage 2, pyruvate oxidation and citric acid cycle, to stage 3, which is oxidative, and there we go, the electron transport chain. Not really worrying too much about this one. Okay, ATP, energy, used to prime a glucose molecule, which is split in two. So the energy makes it ready. The 3 carbon intermediates oxidize to 2 molecules of pyruvate, yielding a net of 2 ATP and 2 NADH. Don't really need to worry about that mostly for our test. I am going to actually show you, I hope it's actually in here. I have my own chart that I usually use, and I'm hoping I have the right PowerPoint here that includes it. This is just showing you ATP drops off a phosphate. That's why it becomes ADP. In our class last week, pretty sure I mentioned ATP. The T is for tri, which means 3. And if it loses 1, di for 2. So that just means it lost 1 phosphate. So if you follow along, this one has 3. It loses 1 phosphate. So now it has 2. That's why it's a D. Then it loses another phosphate, see right here. And that is just ATP to ADP. So TP to DP, TP to DP. So that's pretty much it. And then down at the bottom, 6 carbon intermediate splits into 2 3 carbon intermediates. So 3 carbon, 1 phosphate, there you go. And then it's talking about the payout, how it works. Yeah. Trying to look at my little cheat banner here to see if I have other stuff. Again, this is just trying to show you how this whole citric acid cycle works, making it go through. If you want more detail, let me know, but I am not going to ask you about all this part. I think that's pretty in depth right now, and I'm really not going to worry too much about that. So there we go. Mitochondria and brown fat can burn fuel and produce heat without making ATP. That's one of the cool parts. Has to do with some of the stuff we already learned with that phospholipid bilayer for the cell membrane. We covered the different channels where the stuff can flow through. So here it's letting you know that it's allowing the hydrogen to flow freely across the membrane, and then it can dissipate also the hydrogen gradient, the electron transport chain produced, and it does not allow the ATP synthase to make ATP. Until recently, brown fat in humans was thought to disappear after infancy. If you remember, people would say, oh yeah, look, it's the little baby fat and stuff like that. Yeah. But what they found is that there's brown fat still in most people, and when activated by cold, the brown fat of lean individuals is more active, which means it burns more calories. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So a lean group, which has the brown fat, actually ends up burning a lot more calories for less. They have more brown fat typically than the overweight, obese group. So yeah. So brown fat, think healthier, moving it a lot more, able to burn it off a lot faster. But if you keep putting the other fat on top of it, it makes it a little more difficult. I think that's the best way to look at it. I really just want to get to my charts. Here we go. These are my charts, my nice simple charts, which is so funny, my little thing here. Oh, I see it now. All right. These are horribly basic the way I did these. So hopefully it's okay for you, but you know I like to simplify. So here we go. We've got 1 unit of glucose, which is in your blood. The glucose is the sugar, but it's moving around in your blood. Goes to your muscles where it has the 2-pyruvic acid. We have oxygen present, so that means this is aerobic respiration. And then it goes to the mitochondria of the cells where it creates some energy. So this way, our aerobic respiration, 1 unit of glucose will make 36 ATP. Now, we have this other one where it starts again in the blood, goes to the muscles. There's no oxygen present, so this is anaerobic. Now, where I have the 1, 2, 3, this is just breaking it down with these talking points. So for one, this is going to end up having lactic acid. So this is going to be like when your muscles start burning. If anyone has ever, I put here like when running, but it's really more like when you're weightlifting. You're lifting the weights and you're like, and the muscles just kind of start to hurt. It starts to burn. It's because it's the lactic acid. That's what you're feeling. Then number 2, it's in your blood. Your kidneys and your liver clean your blood. So then your liver is going to convert the lactic acid back into glucose because, again, the lactic acid goes into your blood, the blood goes through your liver, the liver cleans it, so it pulls the lactic acid out, and then it brings it back to the blood. So it's like cycling it all around, and this one will give you 2 ATP. So one way, the aerobic respiration, which is this one, this is aerobic respiration, gives you 36 ATP. This one, the anaerobic respiration, gives you 2. So there you go. Fermentation, this is our anaerobic. Fermentation is a way of harvesting chemical energy that does not require oxygen. So we just talked about the lactic acid, like with the exercising. Now we're going to talk about alcohol fermentation. So yeah, like making beer and wine and stuff like that. So same kind of breakdown, except now notice it ends in ethanol. So we have carbon dioxide and ethanol. Just showing you some wine barrels and some beer fermentation. All of these, remember, they're always sealed to keep the oxygen out. This was one of mine from years ago. And in class, I normally like to ask people if they can guess what beer it is. And I am not going to tell you right now because I'm going to wait until anybody asks. There you go. Now, this is the important one. We're going to look over this, and then I am going to tell you something to remember. Okay, there you go. We have slow twitch and fast twitch muscles. Slow twitch, known as red muscles, these make up ATP by aerobic respiration. A lot of mitochondria, myoglobin stores the oxygen, sustain prolonged activity. I'm going to tell you an easier way to remember this in a second. The fast twitch muscles, or the white muscles, they make ATP by lactate fermentation, have few mitochondria, no myoglobin, and sustain short bursts of activity. Now, here we go. The best way I know to help people remember this is I normally talk about chicken and turkey. Most people I know either eat chicken and or turkey, or they have eaten chicken and or turkey. And so I use this as the prime example. If you think of a chicken, because I'm just tired of saying and or, so we're just going to talk about chickens. If you're eating a chicken and you say, okay, so what's the dark meat? Most people are going to say it's the legs, it's the drumstick, it's the leg and the thighs. This is true. That's the dark meat. That is the red muscle, the slow twitch. Because notice where it says sustain prolonged activity. I have no idea what just fell. It says sustain prolonged activity. So this is going to be like the chickens just walking around, because chickens normally like walk, 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 walk. They walk everywhere. That is prolonged activity. So their legs are the dark meat. The fast twitch, the white muscles, this is your white meat. So if you think of a chicken again, and you think of the white meat, that's normally the wing and the breast. Think about it. Chickens don't exactly fly south for winter. Chickens do that little real quick. It's quick little bursts. They don't fly great distances. It's like controlled falling, basically. And so the quick little bursts, fast twitch. And there you go. So later when I ask you, what did I tell you, or how did I tell you to remember it? Chickens, remember, dark meat, it's the slow twitch, prolonged activity. Fast twitch, white meat, burst of activity. There you go. Now, if you think about a duck or a goose, if you've ever had that or seen it prepared, you will notice they do not have white meat. That is because they do fly south. They migrate. So their flying muscles are for prolonged activity. Yeah, there you go. Then I skip over that. We skip over this. I told you we're skipping over some stuff. All right. This we kind of touch on here, but for the most part, this is going to be covered more in Bio 124. We go in depth in 124. So you already know that you need to take in food in order to obtain your energy. So when you're taking in your food, you are getting calories. You are going to get these from carbs, fats, and proteins. That's where it's all going to come from. Carbs can either be your monosaccharides, like your simple sugars, because mono for one, saccharide for sugar, so it's a single sugar unit. Disaccharides, oligosaccharides, polysaccharides. So you've got a whole bunch. Carbohydrates are not just starch. If it contains sugar, it is a carb. And then we have fats, and then we have the proteins. So the cell can use these three types of molecules to make ATP. So here it's going to show you peanuts. From peanuts, we've got the carbs and the sugars. So there it can do glycolysis. The fats breaks down for the acetyl-CoA and ATP. And the proteins go into all of them. Sorry, I keep yawning and stuff. I told you I'm like exhausted. I'm barely sleeping. So Cells use intermediates from cellular respiration and ATP for biosynthesis of other organic molecules. All this is just letting you know that your body takes in the energy that you have consumed and the oxygen you have breathed in, and then it breaks it all down and sticks it where it needs to go to give each of the cells the energy and the nutrients they need. So that's pretty much what that's telling you. All right, we are done with chapter 6. Told you I'm like slamming through this stuff. Okay, now for chapter 7. I had both of them ready here so I could do it as quick as possible. And here we go. I just did the wrong thing here. And I think, let me close this so I don't mess up again. I think I actually did the right thing, but then I opened the wrong thing for myself. But again, told you, I am not thinking clearly. You should have seen the tutoring session I just did. Oh my gosh, I felt so sorry for that girl. She's a sweetheart. She was understanding, but man, I felt bad. Okay, chapter 7, photosynthesis. Why they feel the need to tell you this, I don't know. They're trying to show you the information. What I tell you about poison ivy whenever I see this is, yes, it's bad. There's poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac. Pretty much it's not that they're truly poison, it's just most people are allergic to it in different levels, and that's what causes the itch. Some people aren't allergic to them and they have no issue. But if you ever have heard that thing, leaves of 3, leave them be, that's what it's talking about. So if you see that little cluster of 3, double check to make sure it's not poison ivy first. See, right here. Let me get my little laser pointer again. See, leaves of 3 right there. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Each one is 1, 2, 3. So leaves of 3, leave them be. There you go. Photosynthesis. This is the plant version of our cellular respiration. So cellular respiration, if you remember just a moment ago, glucose and oxygen breaks down to carbon dioxide, water, energy, and heat. So photosynthesis is the opposite of that, where it's going to take in the carbon dioxide and some water, take some light energy, and then that will give us the oxygen and water at the end. Okay. Oh yeah, and glucose. Sorry, forgot to say that. Anyway, you're about to see a chemical equation. So here we go. Plants and algae and some photosynthetic protists and bacteria are known as photoautotrophs. Auto means self. Troph is basically the food. And so autotroph means self-feeding. They're making it their own food to eat, so they don't have to get it elsewhere. Photo means light. So a photoautotroph literally means that it's using light to make its own food. And then the producers of food, which are those, so a photoautotroph can also be called a producer. These are then munched on by other things, which are heterotrophs. Hetero for different. And so this means these guys have to consume their food. And so heterotrophs are also called consumers. I know it's crazy, but you know, hey, you know the English language. You can have multiple things that mean the same. So a plant can be called an autotroph, a photoautotroph, or a producer. And then animals can be heterotrophs or consumers. There you go. Just some nifty pictures. Now the chloroplast is where all this stuff is happening. It has these things called thylakoids, and I have to say that very slowly because, again, if you remember my dyslexia, I had always flipped that L and A, and it wasn't until one of my students pointed out that I was constantly saying it wrong that now I'm trying to make a very big effort to do the word right. So thylakoids, and a thick fluid called stroma. We're going to have a picture in a second. Chlorophyll is the light absorbing pigment in the chloroplasts that make all this stuff happen. So inside the leaf, we've got all of this. We've got this is showing you the mesophyll. So that's what's in there. This is the vein in the leaf right here. So that's like this part. Stomata or stoma right here. Then this is what they're trying to show you here. This is the chloroplast. Here are the thylakoids. They look like discs, and the fluid inside here is the stroma. All right, here we go. We have the light energy. We have 6 carbon dioxide and 6 water, and then that gives us glucose and 6 oxygen. Now, you will 100% be needing to write the photosynthesis chemical equation. I may or may not also have you do the cellular respiration, but I always make you do photosynthesis. So I would go ahead and learn. And I will have a few more on here for you to look at later. So there you go. Photosynthesis, like respiration, is a redox reaction or a process. So that's oxidation reduction. So remember, oxidation means it let go of some hydrogen. Reduction means it took in some hydrogen. So in photosynthesis, the water, the H2O, is oxidized and the carbon dioxide is reduced. So there you go. Showing you again, this one is being reduced because it will pick up the hydrogen. This one is being oxidized because it got rid of the hydrogen. Now we have a whole bunch of things about light reactions, Calvin cycles, carbon fixation. I don't really ask you much about it. I just keep trying to drill different things into your head. So here we go again. We've got 6 carbon dioxide, 6 water. I normally write light energy right here. And then that brings us to glucose, which is C6H12O6. I normally just keep saying CHO 612-6. So C6H12O6. Notice that they are underneath. They are not up at the same level as the letters. They are dropped down. And then 6 oxygen. Same thing as what I just showed you a moment ago with the photosynthesis. If you do it this way, say, look, there are 6 carbons. There are 6 carbons. There are 12 oxygen and another 6 oxygen, so that's 18. So that is 12 and another 6, that's 18. So you can easily just count it out to make sure you have your numbers right. I would just memorize CHO 612-6. All right, sunlight, type of energy called electromagnetic energy or radiation. We have different wavelengths of visible light. Normally I do a lab on this, but I don't think I had that posted. So I'm going to just tell you a few things and then tell you stuff to remember and hope maybe I have some in here somewhere. Okay, so here talking about visible light. So we have visible light here, which means literally you can see it. This is all the invisible light. There you go. Ah, yes, I wanted to make sure I had this. Roy G. Biv. This will 100% be on the test as well. On the test, I will ask you to tell me or list in order the 7 wavelengths. Okay? When I say to put in order from longest to shortest of the 7 wavelengths, or I might just say the wavelengths, what I want is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. That's Roy G. Biv. Because if you write it that way, red is the top of the rainbow, so it's going to be the longest, and violet is the shortest, the tiny one, so that's going to be the shortest wavelength. So Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Those are the wavelengths I want you to list on your test on Monday. If you write just Roy G. Biv, you're not going to get credit. You have to write out the entire word. Brings us back to the chloroplasts, the thylakoids. Another thing about, I don't know why they try to get so creative, just saying that this takes this energy to make this other energy. It's breaking it all down. Steps of the Calvin cycle include carbon fixation, reduction, release of G3P, and regeneration of RuBP. Don't think you really even need to know any of that for our tests. We do have different types of plants. So we have C3, C4, and CAM plants. C3 plants, if they have a drop in the carbon dioxide and a rise in oxygen, which means they're not exhaling their oxygen, that'll be when the stomata are closed. Stomata, I always refer them as like these little mouths on the leaves, but it's like pores really. When they're wide open, the carbon dioxide goes in, the oxygen comes out, but it also loses moisture. So in dry areas, or if the plant is not being watered enough, they stay closed because they're trying to hold on to their water. When this happens, different plants have evolved ways to get the carbon dioxide they need, because if they're not opening their pores, the stomata, to obtain more carbon dioxide, they need to find a different way to fix it. So C4 plants and CAM plants have a couple of different ways to do it, because these are the ones that are going to be in the drier areas, you know, like cacti and stuff like that. All right, cellular respiration in the mitochondria of plant cells uses about 50% of the carbs made by photosynthesis. They use the sugars, but then they also use other stuff like proteins, lipids, and cellulose. Again, this is just showing you that the sun shines down. The leaf is harnessing that energy, goes down into the plant cell, which then uses those chloroplasts, which does its whole thing to make the food for the plant. Scientists study the effects of the rising carbon dioxide levels using laboratory growth chambers and field studies. So pretty much we're trying to see what's really happening out there. Whole bunch of carbon dioxide and other gases are causing something called the greenhouse effect. And this is causing a lot of issues. This is what climate change is. This is talking about global warming, also known as the climate crisis, not just climate change, because it is reaching, well, has reached the crisis level. When it says a greenhouse effect, you have to think about the fact that a greenhouse literally is how you used to grow your food. Some people grow them in areas where it might be too cold. The greenhouse lets certain amount of light in, but won't let it leave, so it traps the heat inside. That's literally what's happening to our planet with a bunch of gases. We have some gases that have gone up here that let the sunlight and the radiation come in, but then it won't let it go back out into space, and so it's causing everything to slowly heat up. This is why, if you pay attention to the news at all, you will notice our storms are getting worse. We're having a lot of issues. And what's been happening, and I seriously challenge everybody to just take a moment and look in the news. Look at the differences between East Coast and West Coast of the United States over the past few years. The West Coast is getting drier and drier and drier, and the East Coast is getting wetter and wetter and wetter. When Ida just came through from Louisiana up to New York and New Jersey, look at how much flooding there was. This is like, wow. Take a look. It's at the same time as the massive droughts and wildfires on the other side of our country. This is due to how we are mucking up our planet, basically. This is showing you that what's happening again. The sunlight is letting everything come in, but then when it's trying to come back out, only a tiny bit can come out because we have made the whole thing cap it. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, so I finished this whole thing. I did it kind of fast. Hopefully I didn't lose you, because I know my brain's not all there, so I know I did not actually explain to the best of, well, I would say to the best of my ability, but it kind of is the best of my ability right now because my brain's not working. But like I said, I didn't want to leave you hanging. Your test is on Monday. This is exam 2. It's going to be over what we've just covered the past 2 weeks, including this one. So I think it is what, chapter, I think we just did 5 last week. So I think it's 5, 6, and 7. The main stuff from this video, you desperately 100%, I guarantee, have to know. You have to be able to write that photosynthesis equation. You have to know Roy G. Biv, what it really means, and the fast twitch and slow twitch muscles. These will be on that test, I promise you, as well as the scientific method, as I told you to learn for this class, which is, of course, observation, question, hypothesis, prediction, test, analyze results, conclusion. So that is on the test. Good luck. Make sure to do the review. That's already posted for you, and I will see you on Monday. All right? Peace.